All right, welcome to another Dolphin Computer Service video. Today we have a special video where we are announcing that we are going to fix iPhones and iPads soon. The iPads aren't on the website yet, but we are doing that already, and hopefully by the end of next week they will be up on the website for you to view. But yeah, that's our big announcement, and this video, because of that, we're actually gonna talk about some of the phones I think are good for your business, whether you're handing them out to employees or for yourself. We're going to start off here with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. The 8 is the small one with the single camera. The 8 Plus is the larger one with the dual camera. So, in fact, I have two phones. I have a personal phone and a business line. My business line is an 8 Plus. They come in various colors. I have the jet black. This is the pink one. And it's a good phone. I like it very much. It's the main differences between the regular one and the Plus is the Plus is bigger, it has a bigger screen, the phone is physically bigger with a bigger battery, and it has the dual cameras. The cameras are good on both 8 and 8 Plus. The dual cameras, I also have an iPhone 12, which we'll talk about later. That's my personal one. The dual cameras, kind of a gimmick. I still find it somewhat of a gimmick today, depending on the phone, where they'll use the second camera is either a black and white, so it only record in black and white, and when you pair them together, they give you visual effects, which is, like I say, to me, it's a gimmick. But all these cameras are fine for the purpose of, you need to take a photo for documentation, whether you're actually taking a photo of a document, or you're taking photos of, like, let's say a car. If you're, an insurance person, there's a crack in the building, you can take photos of the crack, if you're for the car people, take photos of parts and how to put them back together. For this, a single camera is fine, but if you get the 8 Plus like I have, it's a nice feature to have just in case, you ever want to mess around or do some fancy effects. For the 12, again, we'll talk about that later, but the 12 does things differently, where each camera is actually gives you a different perspective of zoom. But again, we'll talk back about that later in this video. And this is what I would call, getting it used, because one, you can't go to Apple and buy a 8 or 8 Plus straight from their website anymore. And two, this is the lowest or the oldest I would go in terms of getting a cell phone for you, your employees, or even a family member if you want to get them a phone and they're starting out. Because the 7 and the 6S, I used to have a 6S way back in the day. Yeah, they still get updates till iOS 15, but they're about reaching the end of their lifespan in terms of updates. And especially if you're going to be using it for business, you don't want an old tablet that's not going to be receiving security updates to keep you secure online. So, that's why I would recommend this is the lowest or the oldest you would get in terms of an iPhone. It comes with an A11, I believe they call it the Bionic at this point. Very fast, like I said, it runs the latest iOS 15. Plenty of storage options. They go from 64 gigabytes all the way up to 128 or 512. I don't remember off the top of my head. And they're very good phones, for making phone calls, text, videos. In some ways, I like the 8 better than my 12 because since it's an actual square screen like you would, watch on your television, it makes things a little easier on the eyes. You can, things tend to scale properly. So the next phone we're going to be talking about here is the iPhone SE. If you notice very carefully, it looks a lot like the 8, which is essentially an 8 with upgraded internals. This one only comes in one size. These also come in various colors. This one, you could buy it new actually from Apple, but you could usually get a better deal on a used one in good condition, where you can, again, perfect for, getting updates. Apple usually is very good on keeping their devices in service updated for quite a while. Like I said, the 6S is still getting updates till this day. So, if you're So this is a very cheap option too, where you can purchase one. I've seen them online for about $250, something like that, in a very good, like new condition, depending on the seller. Again, perfect for if you want to give this to an employee. The camera's very good as well. You can take your photos of anything you need, scan something for a document. Perfect phone just for that. So then this one is kind of controversial. This one I would actually use skip. This is the iPhone X, and this is what I call the X series, the X, which is this one, the XS and the XS Max. This is when you get the Face ID with the very thin bezels, and the dual cameras are now basically standard at this point on the phone. These are very good phones, but they're not hard to come by. They're expensive to come by because since it's the first year that they did it, they seem to have become collector's items overnight, and everybody wants one. But if you find one at a good deal, I would totally recommend getting it. The X's, the original X has a stainless steel frame, so it's more durable when it comes to dropping and stuff, and we'll talk about phone protection later on. And these is another very good option. Since you have Face ID, the whole phone is a screen. There's no home button, so the whole phone is a screen. Face ID is very good. It's very accurate. The cameras on this are very good as well. Apple has tend to put very good cameras on their phones, all the way from the 7 up, and even the 6S had a pretty good camera. I had one for a while. And yeah, this is another great example of a good phone. So the one I would recommend you getting over this one, and this one's now getting into you can still buy this new, is the XR. The XR, I had this Coral one here. The XR is my favorite iPhone ever, and I have a little backstory. I had this Coral one here. Right when it came out, I got it on a deal when I was still working at an Apple store in the university store. And I purchased the phone, and I had a clear case on it, and this is going to get to the importance of why you need a good case. So this phone, even without the case, is actually very tough. This is when Apple started, branding, their ultra high performance glass. I don't remember what they called it, but I went to the youth fair with a friend of mine. And we were on a ride. You can put my mouse over here so I can describe the ride. It was called the Tumbler, where you sit in this cage. It's a 2-seater cage. The cage spins in a circle like this, while it's being rotated on a oval chassis like this, around the oval chassis. And then the oval chassis itself is spinning around a pivot point in the center like a Ferris wheel. So all of this is spinning, and it earns its name, the Tumbler. I had this phone in my pocket, and the reason why I went with her on the ride was because she was afraid. And funny thing is, she's the one that wanted to go on the ride, and last second she became very afraid. So I went to calm her down. So I was trying to calm her down in the ride, and I noticed a noise. So I went to go check up on the noise, and it's my phone had come out of my pocket and started banging around in the ride. So I tried to catch my phone in midair, and it so happened to find this little vision slit that wasn't encased in this plexiglass material, and it went straight through it. We're at the very top of the ride, about 50 feet up in the air, may I add. My heart hit the floor like you wouldn't believe once I saw it leave the vision slit. So at that point, it went from me calming her down to her calming me down. I haven't even had this phone for a week yet. And the worst part was seeing it fall with you and land smack on the floor face first, with the screen first. And so then every time the ride would reach the bottom, you could see it just sitting there on the floor with the Apple logo facing at you. So the ride stops. I am quite upset that this happened to my phone. So they're unloading us one at a time, and the gentleman had picked up the phone, and he gave it to me, and it didn't have a single scratch on it. Everything worked. The camera worked. The Face ID worked. All the buttons worked. All the speakers worked. Everything was still working even after tumbling in that thing for God knows how long and falling 50 feet face first. This is probably the toughest iPhone you can get and not need a case for it. But I always recommend you get a case. So I'm going to show you. I'm not, by the way, endorsed by any of these companies here. I do this on my own will. I purchased all these products by myself. But if you are going to get a case for your phone, I recommend you always getting a good one. I've had this on every single iPhone I've ever owned, from my 6S, my XR, and my 12. In fact, on my 12, I have this exact same case. If it ever loads up, thank you very much. I have that exact same one. Yes, they're kind of expensive. When I mean by get a good case, I don't mean spend like $100+. If you're going to be spending $100+ on a case, you're probably getting an OtterBox, which is in itself a very good case. Another one is that Incipio case. Those actually make your phone waterproof to an extent. Even though these phones, like the 12 and even the 8, they're water resistant. Like if you accidentally fall in a pool, drop it in a puddle or in a toilet, they'll survive without a problem. The outer boxes and the Incipios actually make your phone waterproof to where you can. I've seen people dive with their phone and it works just fine even after diving 20, 30 feet with it. Wouldn't recommend doing it, but the option's there if you so desire. But again, these spec cases are awesome. I actually didn't have a spec case on my iPhone XR. I just had a regular clear case, but again, you don't have to get a spec case. Again, I'm not endorsed, but if you do get a case for your phone, just read the reviews, make sure it's good. There's even some people that test them in YouTube videos. I recommend watching them. But yeah, this is the exact reason why I say get a good case for your phone, because you never know when, we'll get to this later in a moment, you never know when your employee drops it, when you drop it, where it's going to drop, when it's going to drop. The case also won't save you all the time. I got lucky on the 50-foot drop, but your employee that maybe drops it off a hand railing when they're taking photos of something and it falls and it hits every single step off the 3rd floor, chances are it won't protect against that, but it gives you a good chance of your phone surviving the everyday. And again, this one you could buy new, and if you buy it used, it's about the same price as the regular iPhone X. So to me, if you're gonna spend the same amount of money for a phone, you might as well get the closest to the new as possible. Again, the camera on this one is very good. This one is, I believe, based on the iPhone 11. Again, this phone is very fast. The screen is beautiful. One of the things that people love to hate on this phone was it had a 720p display in 2015 or 17. It was 2017 when this phone came out. Yes, I believe it's 2017 when this phone came out. Don't quote me on it. 2018 probably is more close to it. But the phone is beautiful. And in fact, I had a Motorola Z2 Force with an OLED screen that had a 1440p, which is a 2K screen. And this one looked better than that phone any day of the week, any condition. It's actually a very beautiful phone. Colors are amazing. This was my favorite iPhone, and you can probably tell by the way I talk about it. But yeah, this is a perfect phone. If you're looking for something new and you don't want, the basic, SE, you want something, a little bit more modern, this is a very good phone. So this is the phone that the XR is based off of, which is the iPhone 11. Here, they started going to the 11 Pro, which added the 3rd camera, and the 11 Pro Max, which is basically the 11 Pro, except bigger. So these you can still buy new, and I would only recommend this one, again, if you get a really good deal on it, new or used, because at this point, to me, if you're on the Apple website looking at something to buy for you, your employees or your family or whatnot, you might as well get the latest, which would be the 12, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the only reason why I would recommend you getting the Pro is the Pro has, I believe, the Pro Max, not the Pro, but the Pro Max has a LiDAR sensor, which is very useful in a super niche application where LiDAR is basically, it sends out beams of light at an object, and depending on how those beams of light bounce back to the camera, it'll actually make a 3D image of whatever you took a photo of or whatever you scanned. And that's super useful. Like if you're a contractor and you want to, and you have this, and this also requires software, by the way, to go with it, where if you're a contractor, and I've seen medical personnel use it too, where the medical personnel, when they want to make a cast or a custom bracing for your foot or your arm, they'll scan your body parts with the LiDAR, and based off of that data, they can make a cast that is custom made to you and it fits perfectly. On the contractor side, they'll actually map the wall. Like let's say you have an open room where the drywall hasn't been put up yet, where they can map the wall, and then they can plan out all the electrical work with that information on the software that's on the phone. And the tablets have it too. The tablets we'll discuss next week, because tablets are a bit different, especially when it comes to the cases. Because just a little off topic here, I actually use an iPad as a GPS for my boat, which is, again, this is a topic for next week, but just a little, heads up. But with that LiDAR, you could actually, map out, with the contractors, they would map out all the electrical, all the plumbing. And there's actually a company out there, I don't remember the name, where the LiDAR, buying the phones, actually saved them more money than not having the phones and tablets. Because before, they could plan out, these were room planners, where they would basically plan out where pieces of furniture and office equipment would go inside of a room. So before, they would actually use cardboard cutouts that they would cut out, by hand, and then set it up and alter it to best suit the room. But with the LiDAR, they would just scan the room, scan the objects that they were going to put in, and then they could arrange everything on the phone and on the tablet. And by that way, they didn't have to, constantly buy cardboard, waste time cutting them out. It saved them so much money that they were able to buy more, basically. I don't remember what exactly they did with it, but they made a whole lot of money by just the savings of having the phones. So this is the latest and the greatest. I have the blue one, just the regular. They have 4 versions. They have the 12, which is this one. They have the 12 Pro, which adds the third camera and the LiDAR. The 12 Pro Max, which is the third camera, the LiDAR, and it's bigger. And then they have the iPhone 12 mini, which is a smaller version of this one. To me, if you're going to buy a brand new iPhone, you might as well get the latest. It has the 5G. It's actually a really good phone. I love it. The 5G is fast. When you have 5G, again, that thing is a whole conversation for itself. But, it's being implemented. It's fast when you have it. And it's actually really tough. The edges here, as you see, are flat, so it helps you kind of grip it a little better. But again, I have a spec case on it, so you don't feel the flat edges. But it's actually a really good phone. Screen is beautiful. And if you're going to get, to me, I know it sounds kind of weird coming from a business person that, fixes devices. But when it comes to buying a new phone from Apple, it's actually kind of worth getting the Apple Care. If you're gonna get the the 8 over here, they no longer sell the Apple Care, and then that's when you either go to Apple and they'll charge you, I believe it's $200. I actually charge the same as Apple to remain competitive, but the difference is you have to go to Apple, I come to you. So in some ways, I'm more convenient. Again, I know it sounds weird coming from me, but I'm not in the business of lying to my customers. I tell them how it is, and it's up to them to make the decision. And it's honestly worked for me, because I would tell people the truth. and they would come back. So here, the nice thing about Apple Care is if something is wrong, they can, they'll fix it. They'll fix it at the Apple Store, or they'll replace it with a new one. And if you decide not to get the Apple Care, it's actually totally fine. Again, you can come to me to get the phone repaired, whether it's the screen, the battery, anything really. Our main things are screens and batteries. That's what's on my website. But we do other repairs, like if the logic board has to be replaced or the camera lens is shattered, we can replace all that just as fine. And then this is it for the iPhone line. When it comes to Android, I have a love-hate relationship with Android. I used to have nothing but Motorola's, and then I had a Samsung, and I actually, again, I'm not sponsored by anybody, but if Samsungs, I would tell you to forget about it, stay away from it. Just from bad personal experiences and from what I hear from others, they don't honor their warranty, which is why if you're going to get a warranty with a phone, an extended one, I recommend Apple, because they always, from when I've dealt with them, they've always honored their warranty, especially when you pay for the extra one. Samsung, they didn't even honor the 180 days I've had it for when it came with a 1-year warranty. So, that's just my personal opinion. You can do with it what you want. If you do get a Samsung, the S10e is a good phone for you and your employees or your family. I had the Note 10, and I didn't like it at all, actually. It was it misclicked a lot. The fingerprint only worked when it felt like it. The UI was always buggy. Things wouldn't work exactly. The screen was beautiful, but the UI and the software and the fact that when it ended up having a problem, they didn't want to honor their warranty. That really was the end of it for me. And it's not just their phones. I've heard that they don't honor their warranty on their televisions, their refrigerators, their washing machines. So from what I hear, I recommend to stay away from them. But if you are to get an Android phone, the Motorola G line is the best. I had the original Motorola Moto G. Till this day, it still works. And that phone was abused. I had that phone in 2013. I had that phone when it first came out, the Moto G line. I took a shower with it. I would play music in the shower. When I would lose power in my house and I didn't feel like pulling out my generator, I would turn on the flashlight and listen to music all while in the shower. You can totally tell I've been in the shower with this phone. Like it fell in puddles. I even fell overboard on my boat with it once. I was leaning on the edge. I was not paying attention. Had my phone. My friend pushed me. Boom. I went over the edge. And in salt water. I'm not talking some lake. I'm talking about, salt water. I'm out in the ocean. I climbed back on board and the phone is still working. All I did was rinse it out under some fresh water just in case. Dried it off real good. I turned it off. I made sure the inside was dry. Dried it off really good, and it never, ever, ever, ever had a problem. My first Motorola phone was actually the Motorola. It wasn't the Blur. It was the Motorola Charm. It was basically a BlackBerry with a touchscreen and a touchpad on the back. That was an amazing phone. Again, that one fell in shampoo. I had that one when I was in middle school. It fell in shampoo, and it still worked. Everything worked. It worked up until the day somebody stole it. And it's probably still working for whoever stole it at this point. So, again, the Moto G line is, to me, the most durable Android phone you can get. They have a bunch of Motorola options here. They're really inexpensive. You see $169, and they go all the way up to about, $500. Another YouTube channel called Louis Rossman, he used to have one, and he loved. In fact, he did a video on how tough it was. He threw it on the wall like 8 times before it finally cracked, and it was still working after the crack. And that was probably the most abuse you can actually put a phone in, which is you physically, with all your force, throwing it against a solid object. That's how tough these phones are. So to me, if you are going to get an Android for you or your employees or your family members, it would be the Moto G line. So if you notice on my website, I actually only do iPhones and iPads, and that's because, which is another benefit to me of the iPhones, is parts are easily available for iPhones and iPads. When it comes to Androids, you have to do a lot of hunting, and there's no guarantee that it's a new part. A lot of them are used, and in all my stuff, when I do the repairs, I usually, whenever possible, there's always a chance, that there's just no way around it. It's always a new part. I always get my parts, especially from iFixit. Again, I'm not sponsored by them or endorsed by them, but when I put things together, I use quality parts because it's more of an inconvenience to put a knockoff than it is to put, the good part, and it's gonna work. So that's another thing why I recommend getting an iPhone, especially if you're gonna be giving this out to employees, is because one, they're known to be more secure. The company stands behind their product, and parts are easily available for them. You can get them anywhere. They're almost always new, and they're really easy to put together because since they're standard, I can charge a standard rate for the phone. If you give me one of these, I'd have to charge you a different rate than what it would be for an iPhone because, again, a lot of these aren't standard. I have to do more hunting for these parts. But again, that's up to you and what you decide what's best for you and your employees and your business. This is all just my opinion. But again, whichever fits your budget and your needs, by all means, go buy it. Thank you for watching this video. Have yourselves a wonderful day, folks.